Hey everyone, it's Sandon here on day 5 or 6 of Business Jargon. I just wanted to give you guys a quick update ahead of this one. We've had a good number of views, a couple hundred views on each video, and I'm not going to complain about that, especially when most people are watching at least half of it. So great, woohoo! But the other thing is content is a numbers game. It's making lots of it and putting it out there and being okay if not all of it works out well or as well as you'd hope. So I have set up this room a little bit myself. Ish will come in and help me actually get the lighting right so that this all stays in focus at the same time as you see this guy in front. But I will be producing a lot more content, some of it on sandon.com. So that's my first name, .com. I kind of left that site languish a little bit, and knowing that I need to get into the habit of making more content, sometimes I just don't feel like making really polished business content, and what'll happen is that'll kind of knock me out of a rhythm. And this is definitely content creation, and marketing is a 24/7 kind of game, right? You have to continuously be putting out, getting better at your craft, making it faster, taking less takes. This is take 6 if you're wondering. And then producing it a lot quicker and getting it out. And one of the ways to do that is to make content not necessarily that's all business oriented, just something you're passionate about that you can hop in to our little boardroom here and talk about. But for today, we are going to talk about one term, and I promise you it's actually that term. I don't know if you can see it very well. It's capacity. I can do some color correction. I think basic color correction later. So capacity has a lot of different meanings depending on who you are, what role you have, and it's really an important business term because it really governs a lot of what you can do and what your market's capable of, and really get down to it whether or not your business can succeed. So if we look at it from the terms of employers, employers have to think about capacity in the sense of human resources, their access to capital, and if they're a fabrication company or a manufacturing company, how much capacity can they actually push through any one part of the process at once, right? So, and this works for making any kind of product, from service industry and food. Like if you have a kitchen, you can only cook so many fries at once because you only have so many deep fryers. Well, that's your capacity for fries, right? Also, if you are a restaurant, you can only serve as much food as you have servers to serve that food. So that's another piece. And all this comes into play when you think about your capacity as an organization, right? And then you have to start thinking about the capacity of your market. So where are you priced at, right? So if you're a higher end restaurant in a market that is below the average income in the province, such as any restaurant in northern New Brunswick, well, then you got to look at the capacity of your market to afford your product being a lot lower, right? So your target market is no longer the 60,000 people in Restigouche. It's actually probably more about 5,500 people, right? If you're a high-end restaurant. So that's something to consider as an employer. That's the capacity of your market to support your product, right? This comes into play in economics, right? So if we talk about the economy, what does the economy have a capacity for, right? So if 1 million jobs came in, could the economy of Canada actually handle that? The answer is no. We actually are down to 4.9% unemployment. We don't have 1 million people ready to join the workforce or looking to join the workforce right away. So we would have to either add people by getting people who are not looking for work to actually look for work, or immigration. So that's a human resource capacity on an economic standard based on, and then you can look at our borrowing ability. That's where that AAA credit rating that Canada maintains comes into play. You can talk about that in the provincial sense too, and decisions kind of come around that. So you have inventory, capital, people. So one of the things that you might want to think about in inventory is if you've seen gas prices fluctuate. So one of the reasons that gas prices have been so high for so long is that oil and gas companies haven't invested in building additional capacity. Knowing that oil and gas is on the way out, large oil and gas companies are not going to invest in a $1 billion plant to increase the capacity of gas products that they can produce in the short term. it's just not worth it for them. And we don't blame them. It's common business sense. This isn't, but the result is, until Joe Biden started flooding the market by releasing American reserves, the price went up because the demand and the supply didn't change, the demand kept going up, 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 up. There we have it. In the government, every government at the beginning of the year looks at its capacity in terms of budget, the ability, the infrastructure that it has in place in order to, enact. And I'm way out of focus now. Slowly. There we go. All right. So the government looks at its ability to produce, to execute on its budget, its infrastructure that it has in order to do that. And I'm going to stand right here. Seems to be a little bit better. I'll kick this up. There we go. All right, so still in focus. Okay, cool. And if they have a mandate for it. So the government has the budget and the ability to basically send everybody home. We found that out during the pandemic. But right now they really don't have a mandate to do that again. So even if, the money came back and they could fund CERB again and send everybody home and lock us down, they don't have a mandate to do that anymore. I don't think they'll really ever get it again, but that's something to keep in mind. So with government, we're talking about budget, infrastructure, which is ability to do something, and mandate. And then the ability to do something comes back into people and resources. For you, as an individual, you have a capacity to do a lot. Your potential is unlimited, but I shouldn't say unlimited, but is limited by a few things, and that's their capacity. So it's limited by the amount of time you have, the amount of energy you have, money, and skills. So if you think of yourself as your own business, you incorporated, and you want to make more money, great. Do you have the skills to demand a higher paying job? What's your capacity in that regard? What's your capacity in the sense that you can make money on investing? Well, if you want a big return, you have to make a big investment. So what's your capacity there? What's your capacity for loss? What can you absorb if you don't do it right? Energy in the sense of, at the end of the day, I'm really fucking tired. I don't necessarily want to be running around side hustling, driving Uber, that kind of stuff. So that's another piece of capacity. And time is the one thing you never get back. So it is a finite thing, except that none of us know where the end is. That's the tough part. So capacity in and itself is something to keep in mind. It affects every ounce of business, ounce of our day-to-day lives. And I think for a lot of people, especially if you leave with one thing in terms of the market around here, if you're going to build a company that sells a product or service to the people of New Brunswick, or in particular northern New Brunswick, the new census data is out. Go to statscan.ca and look at it. It's great. What you can do is you can kind of price out what your product needs to cost in order for you to make a go of it as a business. And what you'll find out is that unless people, and you'll start looking at what annual household income is and how many annual households there are. And if your product is priced at the higher end, say it's an investment in reno, you got to look at it, well, okay, so if you're doing renovations, if you're a contractor, okay, well, there's 50,000 people or 60,000 people in the rest of the county. All right. Average reno at this point really costs about $80,000. So how many people have $80,000 to spend on that? Not a lot. There's more people are going to borrow it. So you get a little bit of a scale, but how many people have that borrowing capacity? Chances are they have to make more than that in a year. That's a general rule. So, and with the average household income being between 35 and 42,000, you're looking at the top half, maybe even the top 20 percentile of the population. Then you realize that, okay, there's other people in the market. So if I only get 10% of the market, right? So now you're into the, getting 20% of 5,000 people. And that would be really, really good as a contractor. And then you have to realize that, okay, these are the people that I can afford it. These are the people, this is the market share that I think I'm going to get. But wait a second, this isn't an annual thing. Renovations are generally done once every 10 years. So then you have to look at, Okay, well, who's due? So if you have it populated over 10%, and you can see, anyway, long story short, you're looking at actually marketing and potentially selling to a pool of under 100 people out of a population of 50,000. That's the capacity of the market to buy your product. And the more and more people I talk to about their business ideas that think that they're just going to be able to sell it here, this is something that I stress really, really heavily, is that the market's capacity to support you and for you to make a good living off of your business by doing that just isn't there. So that's it. That was probably longer than it should have been, but capacity, keep it in mind.